very own jaw-dropping backyard paradise online at landisbc.com. From ESPN, the great Adam Schefter joins us. Shefty, happy training camp day in Philadelphia.
Andrew, John, happy New Year to everybody there.
It is a very exciting time. We've been focusing on being positive today. We're focusing on what you told me to do a couple weeks ago, to move forward and ignore the past, even though there are still some things that I will keep an eye on.
He's sort of good at it, not great at it.
Today's a day, Adam, where I'm ready to talk about the high expectations and why we have high expectations, because this Eagles team should be good.
Should be really good. There's no reason it shouldn't be. It's the best team in the division, for whatever that's worth. They have had the kind of off-season that you would hope that your team have. They've made basically all the right moves in my mind. And now you take your chances and you see if the team can come together and perform better than it did last year. That's the whole key. Again, part of this will be Cam Jurgens replacing Jason Kelce at center. Let's see how that goes. We're going to need some production from all sorts of players on the defensive side, whether that's Milton Williams or Chauncey Gardner-Johnson or whoever it may be, Isaiah Rodgers playing cornerback. Somebody's going to have to come through and step up, but there's no reason this team shouldn't win. There's no reason this team shouldn't be in contention. There's no reason this team shouldn't make a run. But it's easy to say that. It's another thing to actually do it.
All right, give us this. All the training camps that you've observed and you've been a part of, what are things that matter that we're going to hear about, and what are things that don't matter?
I don't mean to oversimplify it. I always felt like this was the case. I always feel like injuries are the thing that matter the most in training camp, because you're never really going to know exactly how guys are or aren't coming together until the games begin. It's hard to measure that. Like, let's just say you're out there watching practice and the offense is humming every day and it looks like, the defense is playing well against the second team up. Like, it doesn't mean a lot to me. It just doesn't. Honestly, everybody's going to prep and get ready and get in condition for the season. But the second you start losing players to injury, especially important players, that's when I think some of the steam starts going out of teams, to me. I just think that's the most significant element of and it happens all the time. It just happens. Starter goes down. And then, the coach and it's up to the next man up. And and that's all that's true. But you can't be losing guys in training camp. Important guys. Can't happen.
Shefty.
And there's no way to control it. It does.
Absolutely. Now, I want to ask you, how should somebody balance, when it comes to the Philadelphia Eagles, high expectations and also patience? Because two new coordinators, Kellen Moore, Vic Fangio. You mentioned new center in Cam Jurgens replacing a future Hall of Famer in Jason Kelce. There's a new-look defense, a lot of new players on this defense, a lot of new starters on this defense. How do you handle high expectations? A lot of us have a floor of 12 wins while also trying to be patient with a new-look team.
Yeah, by the way, it looks like at least half the defense is going to be new as starters, roughly. I mean, they could have 6 new defensive starters. And you know what I say about patience and being a fan? Screw that. I don't know. Who cares? You're room for them to win. As a fan, fans aren't patient. That's not what fans are supposed to be. Fans are supposed to be into it. And you're not plotting out how to be, I'm going to pace myself and be patient with this team. No, you're all in. They're opening the season in Brazil against Green Bay. Get out your sombreros and start rooting for the Eagles. I mean, that's the deal. You're not waiting to say, well, I know this defense is going to come together. I know the offense is going to come together. So I'm going to be a little understanding of this opening day loss. I don't think that's how fans think and operate.
We saw where two of the, different publications had the Eagles with the second-ranked roster, top to bottom talent-wise.
Uh-huh.
And though we're being very positive about what we expect of this Eagles team this year, we were very skeptical of their roster, top to bottom, being top 2. Do you see their roster as being as deep as others do?
I think they have a very strong roster. I think they've got question marks like other teams. I mean, there are some defensive question marks still here. Whether the the corners can come through and the safeties can come through and they get the pass rush they need. Like, those are legitimate questions. Here's the thing. They're either going to start playing to their capabilities and winning, and you're going to say, look at how good and deep this team is. They'll lose a couple of people, and guys will step up, and they'll keep winning, because that's what the good teams do. And you'll say, look at this. They've got the depth to overcome it. Or they won't. And then you say they're not as deep as we thought. And only they can define it. And what really helps define that, and again, I don't mean to oversimplify it again, but when teams are winning, everything looks, feels, smells, and tastes better. Everything. You can make an argument that everybody's better than they actually are. When they're winning, that's how it feels. And when they're losing, it doesn't feel that way. It just doesn't. Nobody's getting done what they should. Everybody's under the microscope. Everybody's up to be criticized. Anybody's fair game. And again, certain teams get it rolling and they overcome all the nonsense and noise, and other teams just don't. And we've seen them both from the Eagles the last 2 years. So there's your proof and evidence right there. 2 years ago, they were deep. They were talented. They were tough. They were strong. They were all those things. Why were they? Because they were winning. The next year, there were some changes, absolutely. They lost Jonathan Gannon. Wasn't quite the same. But are you going to tell me that the drop-off is from being on the precipice of winning a world championship to basically being an awful football team in the second half of the... Like, it's that steep? Really? No. It's just that team from 2 years ago was strong enough, tough enough, adaptable and flexible enough to overcome anything that was coming its way. It believed in itself. It built confidence. It had momentum. All that went away last year for whatever reason. I don't mean to bring up last year, but it went away, and it never was recaptured. And so this team now has the opportunity to forge its own identity and its own path. And it's either going to play like the team from 22 or it's going to play like the team for 23. And you hope, if you're an Eagles fan, that it's 22. And you hope, if you're an Eagles fan, that 23 is in your rearview mirror and we're moving forward. And that's the way it's going to be. And they've made enough changes that it's been freshened up. There's a new aroma in town. There's a new look in town. There's a new feel in town. And they believe that that's going to be what propels this team forward. And now we'll find out if they're right.
We're speaking to Adam Schefter on the Comcast Business Hotline on day one of training camp for the Philadelphia Eagles. Schefter, it's one thing for radio hosts and fans to talk about what they're most excited for when it comes to training camp. Who in the Adam Schefter Rolodex of Eagles, Eagles land, who are the team most excited about to see come to training camp, whether it's an off-season addition or maybe a player that was motivated during the off-season to try to uplift their play in another year of the NFL?
Andrew, I don't approach training camp like that. I'm approaching it from an entirely different perspective. You're asking that as a fan question, and I have a job, and a job is all that really matters to me in this particular case.
Right.
So I'm looking at it like, okay, who's getting extended? Who's getting hurt? Who's getting traded? What teams are looking for what players? What guys might not make the... Like, I'm thinking of it in terms of stories. So, it doesn't matter to me that Saquon Barkley is playing for the Eagles and making his debut. It doesn't matter that Chauncey Gardner-Johnson's back or that they're going to need Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis to step up and Cam Jurgens to step... Like, all the storylines that everybody thought, who's going to win the number 3 wide receiver? Is it Paris Campbell? Is it somebody else? Does Johnny Wilson take the step up? There's just full of questions. But I'm not focused in on watching a guy. I'm more focused in on the issues and how they would impact my job. If there would be something that I'd be talking about on NFL Live or Sunday Countdown or anything like that.
Give us the inside skinny on what you're hearing about the Hassan Reddick situation and how good does Howie Roseman look now?
Well, look, the Jets made the trade initially thinking that Hassan Reddick was okay with coming in and not having his contract extended. That was why they initially made the trade. And something somewhere along the way shifted in his thinking. We know that he wanted a new deal. I know that's obvious. But I'm telling you that when the Jets traded for him, they were of the belief that it was okay. It was enough for them to say to him, hey, we'd like to try to work out something eventually. I'm good with the way it is right now. And then he never shows up for the all-season program, doesn't show up for the start of training camp, is a holdout right now. The Jets are in a tough spot. I think the Jets are going to have to figure out a way. It shouldn't be hard. Pay him. Like Amari Cooper wanted a deal. He had 1 year left. The Browns went to him, gave him $5 million incentives, guaranteed the $20 million that he was supposed to make this year. What does that matter anyway? Of course he's going to make the roster. So if you're the Jets, again, to me, I'm using a formula like that. Saying, okay, Hassan, here's the deal. We're going to give you right now $10 million in incentives, $5 million in money right now, $5 million more in incentives, and we'll guarantee the 14.5. Like something to that effect. I don't know what it is, but it's not hard. And you got to please the guy enough to get him in and have that take that issue off the table. So. It's not what they wanted. It's not what they needed. It's not how you want to start camp, but that's where they're at right now. And their problem is what the Eagles would have had to deal with if he had stayed. And it's obviously the reason that the Eagles moved on from the guy.
All right, last thing for you, Schefter. I don't know how much you can speak on the actual injury of Cooper DeJean, because it just came out last night that Cooper DeJean's going to miss the first 3 weeks of camp because of a non-football related injury. I don't know if you have any insight on that injury, but I want to ask you this. In all your years of covering the NFL, public, or maybe you can't even mention the player's name, the strangest injury that occurred right before the start of camp, because I'm sure this is the time when GMs and coaches are holding their breath because they don't want to hear of any injuries right before the start of a new season.
Pre-training injury.
Like we know what happened to Jason. We know what happened to Jason Pierre-Paul.
What was it? It was he stretched incorrectly or something. He was bent in a weird position.
It was an awkward position.
What we were told.
Yes,
that's a really weird thing. I've never heard that in all my years of doing this job.
I've never heard that either for a hamstring injury. I remember back in the day in Denver. I remember 2 players tore their ACL skiing in the off season. I remember that distinctly because I remember calling up and one of the guys being very upset that it was going to come out. Obviously, you're in violation of your contract, and they lost the starting offensive lineman. I remember a quarterback in Denver tearing his ACL in a pickup basketball game they played. Never really came back from it either. So, but that's not strange. It just, to me, those are reminders. If I were in those situations and I were these guys and I was 25 and I had, a big NFL contract, I wouldn't be skiing. I wouldn't be playing pickup basketball.
Sure.
That's me. That's me. Like, the last time I played pickup basketball was in my late 20s. I got an elbow in the eye. I had to get stitches above my eye, and it was my left eye. And the next day I had to be on TV, and I was all bandaged up, and I said, I'm 28 years old. What am I doing? And that was the last time I ever played pickup basketball.
Whoa, Schefter. I'm 30. Connor is 29.
And they're cooked.
We play pickup every Wednesday night. So today's Wednesday. So if you are interested, come and join us.
I appreciate it. I am definitely not interested.
Good job.
Schefter, you're the man.
Schefter.
We appreciate it. We're excited for another fun-filled season of NFL football and Eagles football, and can't wait to talk to you every single week during it.
Thank you, buddy.
Happy New Year, guys. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. There he is, Adam Schefter from ESPN on the Comcast Business Hotline.